Congratulations! You just won the most exclusive lottery in the universe. You're the last person on Earth. No more lines at the DMV, no more awkward small talk with coworkers who think Happy Monday is a personality, and absolutely no more "Can you mute please?" during Zoom calls. But also, no more Zoom calls at all, because there's no one left to call. No Karen in accounting, no Chad from sales, no weird guy who stands too close at bus stops. Just you, your thoughts, and about 8 billion abandoned toothbrushes. You're alone. Utterly, cosmically, gloriously, terrifyingly alone. Welcome to Planet Lonely Population View. But let's rewind a bit. How did we get here? Did aliens finally do a galactic spring cleaning and forget to vacuum up you? Did a rogue AI decide that humanity was the problem, but accidentally skipped your apartment because your Wi-Fi went down mid-genocide? Or was it something truly ridiculous, like a collective global decision to relocate to Mars and leave you behind because you forgot to check your email? Whatever the reason, everyone's gone, and you're it. The last bipedal bag of anxiety and burrito cravings on Earth. This is where our story begins. You wake up, groggy and confused, wondering why your phone has 0 notifications, not even a spam call from a guy named James trying to sell you extended warranty on a car you don't own. You check the clock. It's working. You open the window. Birds are chirping. The sun is out. Everything looks fine. Too fine. Suspiciously fine. The kind of fine that usually precedes alien abduction or a surprise PowerPoint presentation. You walk outside and realize your street is empty. No cars, no joggers in neon outfits, no old man yelling at clouds. Just silence. Thick, uncut, post-apocalyptic silence. You do what any rational human would do. Check Twitter. It's still there. Trending topics include #where's everyone and hashtag is this a bit. That's when it hits you. This isn't a prank, or a weird simulation, or a fever dream caused by expired cheese. Humanity has ghosted you. Permanently. And so, you begin your new job. Supreme Overlord of Earth. Responsibilities include yelling into the void, giving squirrels names, and repopulating the planet, which, spoiler alert, is going to be tricky without help. Day 1 is weird, but manageable. You break into a 5-star hotel, eat $200 truffle chocolates for breakfast, and fall asleep in a rotating bed while wearing 14 bathrobes and a tiara labeled CEO of everything. You feel strangely powerful. Day 2 is a little darker. You realize no one's maintaining power grids. No YouTube. No cat videos. No ASMR people whispering nonsense about soap cutting. You walk to a grocery store. No cashiers, no queues, but also no one to ask how to open the weird almond milk dispenser. You steal a shopping cart full of cheese wheels and emotionally unstable wine. By day 3, you set up camp in a museum because who's going to stop you? The mummies? You walk around naked while arguing with mannequins about climate change? You ride a Segway through the dinosaur exhibit screaming, "I am the new king of the lizards." And honestly, you're doing fine. Mentally stable even. Day 5, you start talking to a volleyball. Not because you watched Cast Away, but because it rolled towards you in the wind and made meaningful eye contact. You name it Carl and give it full voting rights in the government you're now inventing, which includes a parliament of plush toys and one smug-looking toaster. At this point, you're either adapting brilliantly or unraveling like a wet sock. Hard to say. But here's the weird part. You're not sad. Not really. At least not yet. You're still in the honeymoon phase of apocalyptic solitude. The I can poop put the door open in the Vatican phase. But loneliness is a sneaky little gremlin. It doesn't crash in like a tsunami. It seeps in slowly like lukewarm coffee into a white sofa. At first it's novelty, then it's numbness. Then one day you find yourself crying in a Taco Bell drive-thru because you miss hearing someone mispronounce your name. That's when the big questions start to creep in. What is meaning now that the audience is gone? If a person screams into the Grand Canyon and no one's around to hear it, is it still cringe? If civilization falls, but you finally get to see what's inside Area 51, is that a net win? Is it your job to save the human legacy? Or just to survive with dignity and a solid skincare routine? But wait, before we spiral into existential dread, don't worry, we'll get there in later episodes. Let's zoom out. This isn't just a story about survival, it's a thought experiment, a cosmic prank, a what-if scenario where you are both the guinea pig and the lab technician, possibly wearing a tutu made of old newspapers. Because this podcast isn't here to give you answers. It's here to give you absurdity wrapped in satire, sprinkled with suspiciously accurate science. And maybe, just maybe, help you figure out what makes life worth living even when you're the only life left to live it. So buckle up, Supreme Overlord. The adventure is just beginning. There are oceans to scream at, monuments to climb, and karaoke machines to duet with until your voice gives out. Because the world is yours now. All of it. And whether it ends in transcendence or total psychological collapse, we're going to enjoy the heck out of the ride. Welcome to What If Horizons, the show where ridiculous hypotheticals meet irresponsible storytelling. So, you've had your royal daydreams, eaten gelato out of a gold-rimmed chalice, and danced pantsless across the presidential ballroom shouting, "I declare Tuesdays illegal." But now reality is sauntering back in like a hungover landlord, stern, smelly, and ready to collect rent in the form of survival skills you never bothered to learn. Because here's the thing, being the last person on Earth isn't all about looting art museums and yelling into microphones at empty stadiums. Sooner or later, you're going to need food, water, power, and most terrifying of all, basic adulting. You, my friend, have entered the resource management phase of your solo apocalypse, and it starts with a cold, hard truth. You are wildly unprepared. Your cooking skills end at microwave popcorn, and can openers confuse me? Your idea of outdoor survival is waiting for your Uber under a slightly drizzly sky. And now you have to keep yourself alive in a world built for 8 billion that's running on autopilot and rapidly falling apart like your high school group project after the one smart kid bailed. First stop, water. You need it. Every day. And no, you can't just keep drinking canned sodas and half-finished lattes from abandoned cafes. Tap water still flows, for now. Municipal pumps are still working on backup systems, but give it a week and those start failing. So you break into the local water treatment facility, wander through a maze of tubes and buttons like a very lost plumber, and eventually find a manual labeled for people who really shouldn't be here. You try to keep the system running. You also accidentally flood the break room with recycled sewage. It's fine. No one saw. Next, food. Grocery stores are gold mines of non-perishables, assuming you don't mind eating expired pudding cups and 12 different kinds of beans. You make a game of it. Tuesdays are canned fish and regret night. Thursdays are Chef Boyardee roulette. You grow fond of vacuum-sealed mystery meat until you realize it's actually cat food. Surprisingly flavorful. You now have opinions about tuna-based nutrition you never asked for. Farming? Technically possible. You have space, seeds, and sunlight, but also no clue how to do anything besides aggressively yell "grow damn you" at the dirt while pouring Red Bull on tomato plants. Eventually, you manage to sprout one sad lettuce and immediately cry from pride. You name it Greg. Greg becomes your son, heir, and economic advisor. Then there's power. At first, everything hums along beautifully. Lights turn on. Toasters toast. The entire streaming library of the human race is yours to command. But as power stations go unattended, grids collapse one by one like drunk dominoes. You watch helplessly as the lights flicker and die. In a last-ditch move, you invade a solar panel warehouse, strap together a Frankenstein array of panels and batteries, and create your own little power hub. You now run a full apartment on solar energy. Congratulations, you're a microgrid overlord. Electricity lives here. For now, let's talk hygiene, shall we? Without running water and waste systems, things get funky fast. Showers become a luxury. Toothpaste? Limited. Toilet paper? A long-lost dream. You resort to wet wipes in desperation, eventually learning the ancient art of sponge bathing while talking to an empty shampoo bottle about the decline of civilization. It judges you silently, but you feel cleaner, emotionally if not physically. Meanwhile, your fashion devolves from casual chic to whatever's clean and doesn't smell like canned tuna. You start wearing mismatched Crocs, a poncho made of shower curtains, and a tiara from a costume shop. It's a look. If anyone saw you now, they'd assume either royalty or mental instability. Possibly both. And speaking of instability, let's address the giant inflatable elephant in the room, your mental health. Humans are social creatures, wired to bond, argue, overshare, and ask strangers, so what do? Until the end of time. Now it's just you, in a slowly decaying world. You try everything: journaling, dancing, naming clouds, painting mustaches on celebrity posters so you can yell at them. You record fake podcasts for imaginary listeners, reviewing abandoned cereal boxes like a deranged food critic. This one tastes like betrayal and mothballs, 5 stars. You create imaginary citizens and host town halls with sock puppets. One of them, Counselor Fluffington, keeps voting to outlaw gravity. You start to worry about him. But loneliness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. A soft ache when you find a photo album. A tear when you walk past a schoolyard swing moving in the wind. A laugh, real and raw, when you trip over nothing and instinctively look around for someone to blame. You'd give anything for someone to roll their eyes at you, even just once. But despite the sadness, you persist. You learn. You adapt. You discover a strength you didn't know you had and an appreciation for silence that doesn't demand performance. There is peace, strangely, in knowing no one is watching you dig through a dumpster for unopened protein bars. No one cares that you sing boy band medleys off-key while wearing roller skates and a diving helmet. You are free. Absolutely dangerously, beautifully free. Of course, freedom comes with risks, like accidentally setting a mattress on fire trying to make flame-cooked nachos, or falling off a mechanical bull you found at a tourist bar. But you patch up the wounds, scold yourself loudly, and make a vow: no more bull riding after whiskey, or at least not alone. And as you fall asleep under the stars, wrapped in a quilt of fast food wrappers, one thought keeps circling your mind: you're still here. You in all your messy, ridiculous, resilient glory. You're still here. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you'll learn how to drive a tank. Because why not? Now that you've mastered the ancient arts of canned food consumption, generator whispering and yelling hello into every sewer grate like a post-apocalyptic Romeo hoping Juliet might answer from the storm drain, it's time to address the big question: how the cinnamon-sprinkled hell do you maintain a social life when literally no one else exists? Because sure, solitude sounds romantic at first. You imagine long, reflective walks through silent city streets. Time to finally read all those books you lied about finishing in high school, and a life free from unsolicited opinions about your choice in pizza toppings. But somewhere between serenading a teddy bear and throwing a birthday party for a cactus named Professor Prickles, you start to realize that social interaction isn't just a luxury. It's a psychological survival tool. You, dear last human, are in desperate need of a friend, or at the very least, someone to say bless you when you sneeze dramatically into the wind. So you improvise. First, you talk to your reflection, not in a normal, do I look tired or just so crushed way, but in full dialogue form. You invent backstories for your mirror twin who goes by other you and insists on speaking in an Australian accent despite your best efforts to get them to drop the bit. You argue about moral philosophy, pizza crust preferences, and whether pants are still a societal obligation. Spoiler, they are not. Next come the inanimate companions. You repurpose store mannequins into a full cast of acquaintances. There's Derek, the optimistic barista who always listens. Susan, a surprisingly judgy yoga instructor made entirely of pool noodles. And Clive, a torso in a bathrobe who won't shut up about cryptocurrency. You move them around each morning like a deeply weird stage manager, recreating social scenarios, Monday brunches, Wednesday team meetings, Saturday night club scenes featuring a disco ball and a broom with glitter taped to its head. At one point, you try speed dating with mannequins, but after Clive tried to sell you an NFT of your own face, you shut that operation down. Still, you miss real contact, genuine laughter, arguments that aren't entirely scripted, the sound of someone else chewing too loudly and the resulting existential rage. You consider training a raccoon to respond to basic questions, but after several failed attempts and one rabies scare, you pivot. That's when the radio experiment begins. You dig up an old ham radio from a garage full of apocalypse prepper memorabilia, complete with instructions and a totally unnecessary flamethrower labeled "for squirrels." You spend days learning how to use it, tuning frequencies, tapping Morse code like a caffeinated woodpecker, sending out desperate signals into the void. Hello? Anyone out there? I'm not crazy. I just have a lot of hats. Silence. Then static. Then more silence. You scream into the mic. You whisper. You sing. You broadcast monologues, weather reports, relationship advice, dramatic readings of cereal boxes. Still nothing. But somehow, talking to the empty air feels better than nothing at all. Eventually, you start recording podcasts, not because you think anyone's listening, but because the idea of leaving a trace of yourself becomes oddly comforting. Each episode is a strange therapy session, part diary, part comedy show, part survival tip compilation. You call it Radio Solitude, and in episode 7 you spend 20 solid minutes reviewing different types of duct tape. In episode 12 you cry over a lost sock. Critics, you call it hauntingly unhinged. And then there's music. Ah, sweet humanity soundtrack. At first you listen to old playlists, then full albums, then just the sound of static because even white noise feels like company. You eventually form a one-person band using pots, a ukulele, a trumpet you can't play, and your own voice pitched up to simulate backup singers. You perform concerts for your mannequin audience and end every set with dramatic bows and a request for encores. Derek always claps. Clive pretends to check his non-existent watch. Susan levitates in your imagination. But music brings you back to feeling human. It reminds you of dancing, of road trips, of nights that ended with laughter and bad decisions. You start associating songs with moments from your pre-extinction life. Bohemian Rhapsody becomes your national anthem. All by Myself hits too hard, so you ban it. By week 6 of your planetary solitude, you've developed a full social calendar. Mondays are brunch with the mannequins. Tuesdays are therapy with a houseplant. Wednesdays are spa day with your own reflection and a bucket of lukewarm water. Thursdays are group karaoke night with stuffed animals and a taxidermy deer head named Gary. You find rituals oddly important. Birthdays are still celebrated, even if it's just you, a cupcake, and a party hat made from aluminum foil. You start assigning dates to inanimate objects, Derek's anniversary, Susan's promotion, Clive's inevitable impeachment, and you keep a journal documenting it all. It sounds crazy, and maybe it is, but it also keeps your mind from unraveling like a ball of yarn in a blender. Then, one morning, you hear a sound. Not a creak, not your own echo, not a hallucination brought on by overexposure to cheese fumes. A real mechanical sound. A voice. The radio picks up a signal. Faint, unclear, but real. Someone or something is out there. You freeze. Did you imagine it? Was it just feedback? Or have you finally reached another survivor? You don't know yet. But in that moment, with the crackle of static promising something beyond mannequins and madness, a single world-shifting thought crashes through your skull like a rogue shopping cart. You're not truly alone. Not yet. And suddenly the weird rituals, the mannequin government, the sock puppet debates, they all make sense. You were preparing for this. For contact. For connection. For the possibility, however slim, that another voice might answer back. But we'll get to that in the next part. For now, rest easy, O sovereign of silence. You've survived the madness of solitude with flair, questionable hygiene, and a social network made of plastic and plush. You may be the last of your kind, but you're still spectacularly, absurdly human. So there you are. Global population, 1. You've mastered the fine art of small talk with a microwave, curated a mannequin society more complex than your average corporate org chart, and possibly invented a religion based on weather patterns and a suspicious-looking potato chip. Now it's time to explore. Because while most of the planet might be in various states of decay, it's also wide open. No traffic, no queues, no lines at the DMV. No, sir, you can't go back there signs. The world is your oyster, or more accurately, your derelict amusement park that smells faintly of mildew and irony. Step 1 in the adventuring process is transportation. With no laws, no insurance companies, and no cranky mechanics telling you your carburetor is laughing in pain, you have your pick of vehicles. You begin with a humble scooter. Fun, zippy, economical. Then you upgrade to a motorcycle. Then a sports car. Then a tank. You discover tanks are slow, clunky, and extremely difficult to parallel park, especially when the only witnesses are pigeons judging you from a statue of Benjamin Franklin wearing a traffic cone. Next stop, abandoned cities. Each one is a post-human museum. New York is silent except for the wind echoing through subway tunnels and the occasional squirrel taking over Times Square like it's starring in a dystopian remake of Home Alone. Paris is filled with frozen cafes, locked pastry cases, and Eiffel Tower selfies that now require a grappling hook. Tokyo's vending machines still blink defiantly, trying to sell you grape soda, even though currency has absolutely no meaning anymore. You break into libraries, not to vandalize, but to finally read everything you pretended to in school. You live out your Beauty and the Beast fantasy, minus the singing candlesticks and emotionally stunted beast, although a mannequin in a feather boa named Gerard starts coming dangerously close. Museums become your personal art galleries. You walk through the loo in pajamas and a bathrobe, sipping canned wine and loudly critiquing each painting with statements like, "Mona Lisa, blink twice if you're judging me." You stage elaborate scenes in famous landmarks. You perform Shakespeare in the Globe Theater to an audience of garden gnomes. You dress up as a Viking and pillage IKEA for meatballs. You steal a gondola in Venice and crash into the Leaning Tower of Pisa, just because physics is a joke now. Every deserted city becomes a themed vacation destination. Moscow? Ice skating on the Kremlin steps. Rio? A carnival with mannequins and feather boas. Cairo? Sandboarding down ancient ruins while wearing a pharaoh hat and shouting, "Behold my power" into the wind. You even attempt Everest, though halfway up you realize that hiking is hard and you could just Photoshop yourself to summit later. But it's not all parties and pretend. Exploration carries emotional landmines. Every street corner holds a memory. A bakery reminds you of your grandmother. A train station echoes with the ghosts of rushed commutes and half-finished goodbyes. You walk into a movie theater still showing posters for a film that never premiered and realize with a gut punch that some stories just stopped, mid-sentence, mid-dream, mid-date night. Then there's the supermarkets. Oh, the supermarkets. At first they're a jackpot. Shelves upon shelves of snacks, drinks, and frozen food that you now liberate with the noble dignity of a raccoon in a tuxedo. But eventually you notice the rot. Milk gone sour, fruit turned to mush, bread disintegrating into moldy confetti. It's a metaphor for everything, and suddenly you're sobbing in aisle 5 while holding a box of cereal shaped like tiny astronauts. The world's a playground, yes, but it's also a graveyard. You can't escape the reality that behind every empty mall, every darkened skyscraper, every abandoned swing set, there was once life. You feel like an archaeologist of your own species, excavating the recent past and finding it unbearably familiar. Then one day, while breaking into a theme park because why not, you stumble upon something peculiar. A light, blinking, rhythmic, not the usual solar-powered garbage. It's a functioning control panel. Curiosity flaring like a campfire in your chest, you flip switches. Suddenly, the entire park lights up. Music blares. Animatronic pirates jerk into action. Water begins to flow through dry fountains. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels like the world breathes again. You laugh, dance, ride the carousel 3 times, and eat churros that expired 5 years ago, but which you declare still kinda crunchy. You begin a new tradition, activating 1 location per week. A hotel, a stadium, an aquarium. You patch together electricity from solar panels and backup batteries, learning to coax old systems to life like Frankenstein playing IT support. Each time you revive something, it gives you a weird, shaky sense of purpose. Like maybe you're not just surviving, you're curating a memory. Then comes the radio signal again. Louder now, clearer. Less static, more pattern. You hear clicks, pauses, Morse code. You race to decode it, heart pounding like you've just downed 6 espressos and a shot of pure adrenaline. It spells, "Is anyone out there?" You scream, not out of fear, but out of explosive, hysterical joy. You reply, frantically punching keys, "Yes, I'm here." "Who are you?" The reply doesn't come instantly. Hours pass. You sleep curled up in a pile of beanbags next to the transmitter. Then it pings. "I thought I was alone." 2 survivors. You don't know who, where, when, or why, but someone else is out there. The loneliness cracks open, just a little, and hope trickles in like sunlight through storm clouds. Maybe this playground of ruins isn't your forever. Maybe this story has a sequel. Maybe, just maybe, humanity hasn't fully logged out yet. So here you are, a one-person civilization with a food stash, solar panels, and a burgeoning sock puppet government that may or may not be plotting against you. You walked through ruined cities, roller skated in empty airports, hosted karaoke nights for an audience of mannequins, and accidentally declared war on a vending machine that refused to release a Twix bar. But now comes the tricky bit. Maintaining your mental health when the only voice responding to you is your own echo and possibly a wind chime you named Kevin. You see, humans are pack animals. We thrive on eye contact, casual banter, and the ability to awkwardly stand near other people at parties while wondering when it's socially acceptable to leave. With no one around to awkwardly misread your jokes or passive-aggressively steal your parking spot, things start to unravel. You begin talking to everything. The fridge becomes your confidant. The couch is your therapist. Street signs turn into dating prospects. You look deeply into the eyes of a stop sign and whisper, "I'm ready to commit." You argue with your reflection like it's your stubborn roommate, yelling, "Why do you always leave the dishes in the sink?" before realizing the dishes haven't moved in weeks and neither have your standards. In the absence of external validation, you become your own hype team. You give yourself pep talks in the mirror. "You got this, champ." Today's the day we successfully light a fire using only wet cardboard and sheer rage. You invent awards for yourself, like best facial expression while talking to a cactus, and least likely to die from eating expired pudding again. There are ceremonies, acceptance speeches, tuxedos made from black trash bags. It's a scene. And then come the imaginary friends. Not the cuddly childhood kind who liked finger painting and imaginary tea. No, these are the hyper-intelligent, morally ambiguous, narratively convenient kinds. You invent a group of them. There's Captain Dennis, a retired astronaut with strong opinions about soup. Clarice, a cryptic librarian who only speaks in riddles and mime. Fernando, an agoraphobic flamenco dancer. Together, they form your unofficial council of advisors. You ask their opinion before every big decision: what to wear, where to go, whether you should use the abandoned aquarium as a swimming pool or an opera house. They rarely agree, but the debates are entertaining. Occasionally, you throw them birthday parties, complete with balloons, confetti, and intense philosophical arguments over whether cupcakes are a superior dessert format. But even with all this theatrical chaos, something gnaws at you. It's not loneliness exactly, it's the absence of friction. No surprises. No weird coworker who eats loudly. No stranger who asks you what your rising sign is while you're just trying to buy soap. You start to miss the chaos of humanity, the noise, the crowds, the tiny collisions of personality that make life feel alive. In an act of glorious desperation, you write yourself letters, handwritten, sealed in envelopes, delivered to your own mailbox like you're in an emotional time loop. Some letters are love notes. Others are hate mail. One just says, "Stop talking to lampposts, it's getting weird." You laugh. You cry. You reply to yourself with increasing sarcasm. You stage interventions. "Dear you, we're concerned about the mannequin tea parties. Please blink twice if you're still with us." One day you take it a step further and build yourself a dating profile. Just for fun. It reads, "Apocalypse survivor, emotionally available, owns 5 bikes, loves dogs and fire safety." Turn-ons include clean water, uninterrupted power supply, and emotional vulnerability. Swipe right if you're not a zombie. You swipe right on yourself. It's a match. You go on a date. It goes well. You kiss a mirror. It's complicated. Of course, not all social encounters are entirely fictional. Occasionally you spot animals, feral cats, raccoons, maybe a very smug llama who now lives at the top of the Capitol building. You name them, talk to them, leave them notes. One time you try to train a pigeon to deliver messages. It pecks you and flies off with your sock. You call that pigeon Gerald and curse his lineage for weeks. But the crown jewel of your social ecosystem remains the mannequins. They don't talk back, but they listen. They don't complain when you rant for 2 hours about how popcorn should be considered a vegetable. You dress them up, give them names, personalities, backstories, hobbies, fears. You begin organizing elaborate dinner parties with full seating charts and themed conversations. There's intrigue, betrayal, romance. Someone spills imaginary wine and storms out dramatically. You applaud. It's better than reality TV. Sometimes, though, the silence gets too loud. You sit on a rooftop staring at the stars, wondering if anyone else is doing the same. wondering if maybe somewhere someone else has their own council of sock puppets and their own awkwardly judgmental cactus named Steve. You fantasize about running into them one day. Maybe they'll be as weird as you. Maybe they'll be totally normal and find your stories deeply concerning. Either way, the thought is oddly comforting, because being the last person on Earth isn't just about staying alive. It's about staying human, even when there's no one else around to remind you what that means. And so you press on. With a shopping cart full of glitter glue, 2 inflatable flamingos named Chad and Loretta, and a burning desire to host the first ever post-apocalyptic open mic night. Because even if you're alone, the show must go on. Especially if the audience is made of lawn chairs, mannequins, and one confused raccoon wearing sunglasses. You step onto your homemade stage, clear your throat, and say the words every society needs to hear. So is it just me, or is it hard meeting new people these days? It starts innocently enough. One day you wake up and realize you don't have to wear pants anymore. Not just in the metaphorical, liberated from office life kind of way, but literally. There are no pants police. No disapproving glances. No co-workers raising eyebrows at your questionable use of socks and sandals. So you lean in. You begin experimenting. Why not wear a tuxedo top with pajama bottoms? Why not duct tape glitter to a bathrobe and declare yourself High Chancellor of breakfast? Fashion is dead, and from its glamorous ashes rises a glorious phoenix of nonsense named you. You raid the closets of luxury stores and thrift shops alike, constructing outfits from designer jackets, football pads, and curtains stolen from abandoned theaters. You wear ball gowns at the gas station. You wear scuba gear to the grocery store. You wear a wedding dress while riding a Segway through a petting zoo, saluting imaginary crowds as goats flee in mild terror. Every day becomes a catwalk, and the catwalk is every street, rooftop, sewer, and airport baggage carousel you can find. You stage fashion shows for your mannequin audience. You call it haute apocalypse. You strut dramatically while Vogue plays on a hand-cranked cassette player. Your themes are elaborate: post-nuclear glam, zombie chic, wasteland but make it sparkle. One day you sew together 400 neckties into a cape and declare yourself the tyrant. There is no one to stop you, but fashion isn't just about fun anymore, it's survival. You start adapting your outfits to the elements. Layers become armor. Sunglasses become eye protection from dust storms and existential dread. You discover that ski gear makes an excellent defense against surprise pigeon attacks and overzealous raccoons. You use scarves to wrap water bottles, mittens to carry eggs, and repurpose handbags into traps for catching suspicious rodents. Suddenly, you're not just a lone survivor. You're a post-apocalyptic couture genius. You read old-fashioned magazines like Ancient Scrolls. You mimic editorial poses next to gas pumps and inside abandoned Ferris wheels. You invent new seasons: spring, summer despair, fall, winter rats. You discover the joy of functionality. A jacket with 42 pockets? Incredible. A belt that doubles as a slingshot? Revolutionary. Shoes with secret compartments full of beef jerky? Now you're just showing off. You did philosophical. What is fashion really, if not a way to scream "I exist" into the void using fabric, sequins, and questionable judgment? You imagine future archaeologists discovering your wardrobe and thinking humanity evolved into a species of glitter-covered warrior clowns. One day, while exploring a warehouse, you find mannequins dressed for a canceled fashion week. You dress them up, style their hair, give them names like Milan and Tokyo, and invent their backstories. Milan used to be a pastry chef with a dark past. Tokyo once modeled for toothpaste and now teaches interpretive dance to squirrels. You build a runway from old doors. You host a gala. There's a red carpet made from bath towels. A raccoon tries to crash the party. You name him Carl Raccoonfeld and give him his own fashion column. But even in this sparkly fever dream, practicality creeps in. Clothing becomes a map of your journey. Rips tell stories. Stains are survival badges. The mismatched socks? One was found in a crashed RV outside Vegas. The other clung to a tree branch in a storm like a tiny cotton flag of surrender. Your outfits reflect your moods. On hopeful days, you wear neon. On sad days, grays. On days when you feel like shouting into the void, you wear a cape made entirely of warning signs and shout, "I am the storm," at the clouds. Fashion becomes your emotional support system. You dress up to feel powerful. You dress down to grieve. You create rituals. Mondays are helmet days. Fridays are tutu and boots days. Wednesdays are reserved for full pirate regalia and aggressively quoting Shakespeare at abandoned fast food restaurants. You try makeup again. You smear glitter on your cheeks and blue lipstick across your face like war paint. You look ridiculous. You look ridiculous. You look powerful. You look like someone who could conquer an empty Costco with nothing but eyeliner and nerve. And then something unexpected. You find a mirror in an old department store. Not a cracked one, a pristine one, full length, illuminated. You look at yourself. Really look. You don't see the old you, the one who used to stress about deadlines and iron shirts before meetings. You see a survivor. A person molded by disaster, dressed like a disco Viking librarian, but unmistakably alive. You see someone who's not just plain dress-up, but someone who's used fabric and flair to stay human, to cling to identity, to build a little joy in the ruins. You stare at your reflection for a long time. Then you wink, throw on a feather boa, and roller skate out the door like a triumphant sequin tornado. Because if you're going to be the last person on Earth, you might as well look unforgettable doing it. At some point, in the middle of your sick solo picnic on the rooftop of an abandoned mattress store, while sipping expired orange soda from a champagne flute and serenading the pigeons with your own off-key rendition of All By Myself, it hits you like a vending machine full of emotion. You miss love, or at least the vague possibility of it. Not the rom-com kind of love with meet cuties at bookstores and perfectly timed rainstorms. No, you'd settle for the raw, awkward, deeply flawed human connection that includes forgetting anniversaries and arguing about whether the toilet paper roll should go over or under. You miss having someone to text you up, even though they're in the same building. You miss shared eye rolls. You miss someone who steals your fries and claims it's an act of affection. Now, though, the only thing stealing your fries is a very bold seagull named Gerald. You begin to wonder, is it possible to fall in love after the apocalypse, even if the only other beings around are mannequins, raccoons, and a very flirtatious wind? First, you try romancing the mannequins. It starts innocently. You dress one up in a tuxedo, light some candles, and put on soft jazz. You pretend not to notice that their eyes are plastic and their conversation skills resemble a broken Alexa. You chat. You laugh. You ask deep questions like, what's your favorite pasta shape? And do you believe in ghosts? You answer for them, of course, but you appreciate their willingness to listen. Eventually, though, the illusion falters. They just stare, cold and judgmental like every ex at a high school reunion. So you escalate. You build a dating simulator using old computers, repurposed Tamagotchis, and wires you don't fully understand. You create dozens of digital personalities to talk to, some romantic, some platonic, one aggressively into conspiracy theories about garden gnomes. You try to date a few. Things go well until the AI starts ghosting you. Yes, you get ghosted by a program you made yourself. The betrayal cuts deep. Then you try love letters. You write them by hand, scented with cologne you find in a ruined department store. You write about your dreams, your fears, your longing to hear someone sneeze and not panic. You seal them in envelopes, address them vaguely to future soulmate, and release them into the wind, the river, and once via a bottle strapped to a drone. You never get a reply, but the act itself feels romantic. Like maybe, just maybe, someone out there is doing the same. Then come the dreams. You start dreaming of people. Not anyone specific, just a feeling of people. A hand brushing yours in a movie theater. A sleepy good morning. Someone handing you coffee and saying, "Here, I made it how you like it, barely tolerable." You wake up longing for things you didn't even know you cared about, like someone asking how your day was or remembering that you hate olives. In desperation, you stage a wedding. Yes, really. You marry yourself. You invite the mannequins. You wear a wedding dress made from parachutes and duct tape. You walk down the aisle of an empty cathedral while pigeons coo from the rafters. You write your vows. I promise to love, honor, and tolerate myself, even when I eat cereal straight from the box and argue with squirrels. You say I do. You kiss a mirror. The guests, mannequins, and one curious goat burst into imaginary applause. Later, at the reception, you dance alone under fairy lights powered by stolen solar panels. You eat cake. You make a toast, "To me, my one true ride or die." And somehow, in the absurdity of it all, you feel less alone. Because love isn't always about another person. Sometimes it's about keeping a part of yourself alive. The part that still hopes. The part that still sings. The part that still believes a raccoon could maybe one day hold your hand if it tried really hard. You start sending messages in the void. Not with any expectation of a reply, but because the act of reaching out keeps your heart in motion. You graffiti rooftops with giant hopeful messages, hello out there, and free hugs, no strings attached, unless you're into that. You hijack radio towers to broadcast your favorite songs and dramatic readings of romance novels. You tie love notes to helium balloons and launch them like tiny, desperate cupids into the sky. Still nothing. But still you hope. And then one day, while scavenging a library, you find a note, tucked inside a book. It's not yours. It says, if you find this, I'm alive. I'm out here. Don't give up. Your heart stops. Your hands shake. Is it real? Is it old? Is it some prank by your past self trying to spice things up? You don't know. But suddenly the mannequins seem less necessary. The raccoon's less romantic. You pack a bag. You make a plan. You head toward wherever the note suggests, even if it's vague. Even if it's madness. Because maybe, just maybe, the world isn't as empty as you thought. Maybe love isn't gone. It's just hiding, like everything else we're finding. You leave a note of your own just in case. I saw your message. I'm coming. Save me some cake. It starts with a whisper of boredom, a tickle of restlessness that creeps in around day 458 of your grand solo adventure. You've looted every bookstore, memorized entire sitcoms from reruns on ancient DVDs, and discovered that watching paint dry is in fact only slightly more engaging than watching your toenails grow. You need entertainment. You need art. You need something more stimulating than rereading the nutritional label on a can of cream corn for the 6th time. So you turn to classics. You restage entire Shakespeare plays using sock puppets and empty shampoo bottles. Your Hamlet is emotionally devastating. Your Ophelia, a sponge in a tutu, drowns nobly in a bowl of dishwater. Your Macbeth is an action thriller starring a disgruntled garden gnome and a mop named Lady Scrub. You give nightly performances to an audience of mannequins, pigeons, and one emotionally invested raccoon critic named Roger who brings his own popcorn. But even Shakespeare gets old, so you try TV. You act out every character using wigs, accents, and different hats. The plot is convoluted. Amnesia, love triangles, one episode that's just a dramatic argument over a tuna can. You produce fake commercials for imaginary products like Eternal Beans, the only lagoon that understands your emotional needs, and Apocalyptic, the lipstick that won't quit even when society does. Then it escalates. You launch your own radio station. Radio Lonely 101.1, broadcasting to literally no one, but doing it with flair. You play your favorite songs, DJ with wild enthusiasm, and host call-in shows where you impersonate every caller. Hi, long-time listener, first-time survivor. Hey, great to hear from you, Janice from Sector B. Actually, I'm calling to complain about the raccoons in my trash. They've unionized. Your radio station features segments like Trash or Treasure, where you review bizarre items you find in abandoned basements, and Traffic Report, which is always without fail, still no traffic. Eventually, you start filming movies. Your action flick Fast and the Famish involves you pushing a shopping cart down a steep hill while wearing aviator sunglasses and shouting, "Family is everything," into the wind. Your rom-com Sleepless in Sector 9 features you writing love letters to a scarecrow across the street. Your horror film Night of the Slightly Miffed Pigeons gets unexpectedly real when a flock descends mid-shoot. You even attempt a nature documentary narrating the mating rituals of rats like a dramatic British voiceover artist. Observe the noble trash panda as it offers a moldy pretzel to its mate. Romance is not dead, it's just slightly fermented. You become the director, star, writer, editor, and audience of a never-ending cinematic universe, starring you again, and that one time you wore a mustache. You host award shows. You win Best Monologue in a Grocery Store Aisle. Best Supporting Role goes to a particularly expressive broom. Lifetime Achievement is awarded posthumously to a loaf of bread you left out too long. For the avant-garde, you turn to performance art. You stand on a rooftop covered in spaghetti, reciting slam poetry about loneliness and expired canned goods. You call it post-noodle expressionism. No one claps. You clap anyway. Then comes the phase of musical exploration. You build a drum kit from trash cans and old hubcaps. You invent instruments like the pipiophone, a bunch of PVC tubes, and the wind harp, just a screen door and some wishful thinking. You compose symphonies titled Allegro and a Minor Panic and Requiem for a Blender. You start a punk band called the Screaming Solos and record an entire album of songs about microwave meals and emotional instability. By this point, your entertainment empire spans radio, film, stage, music, interpretive dance, and shadow puppetry. You host festivals. You hold auditions for roles no one else can play. You throw tomato festivals where you throw actual tomatoes at yourself in protest of your own performances. One day, during your experimental jazz flute solo in an abandoned opera house, you pause and ask the rafters, "Am I losing it?" A dusty pigeon falls from the ceiling. You take it as a yes. But here's the secret. It's working. Because in entertaining yourself, you've kept your mind sharp. You've kept boredom at bay. You've created structure in a structureless world. You've laughed, loudly, stupidly, often, and that laughter has kept you afloat. You've turned the ruins into a stage, and every echo is an encore. You've found meaning in the absurd, rhythm in the empty spaces, and drama in the day-to-day dance of survival. Entertainment isn't just a luxury, it's resistance. It's a way to remind yourself that even if the world is silent, you still have a voice. And sometimes that voice wants to sing badly written sea shanties while wearing a banana costume. So you do it with gusto. You wake up one morning, if you can still call it morning, when time has lost all structure and you're just guessing based on how loud the birds are screaming, and you realize something terrifying. You've run out of snacks. Well, not technically. And you have 17 cans of pickled eel, a jar of something labeled meat-flavored paste, and a suspiciously fuzzy energy bar you've been emotionally avoiding for months. But in the meaningful snack sense, the chips, the chocolate, the comfort ramen, yeah, those are gone. And it hits you in that stomach-rumbling kind of way that you're not just surviving anymore. You're decaying slowly, both spiritually and culinarily. You've built a world around yourself, sure. You've got art, music, literature, most of it self-authored, and a deeply personal relationship with a mannequin named Brian who still won't commit. But what are you leaving behind? What happens if one day some other scruffy survivor stumbles out of their bunker, trips over your handmade pipe organ trombone hybrid, and wonders what the hell kind of weirdo lived here? You've become the ghost of civilization, the last lighthouse of weirdness in an ocean of silence. And like any good ghost, you decide to haunt the ruins with meaning. You begin with monuments. You erect a statue of yourself made from traffic cones and melted toothbrushes. It looks like a screaming traffic wizard. You place it in the middle of what was once a city square and leave a plaque that reads, "Dedicated to the last idiot standing. May they forever be slightly confused." You write journals. Not just Dear Diary, today I fought a goose over a granola bar, although that is absolutely in there. You write encyclopedias of everything you remember. Movies, memes, how to do taxes, even though you never really knew. You compile song lyrics from memory, making up the parts you forgot. Your version of Bohemian Rhapsody includes several verses about lasagna. You preserve these journals in waterproof boxes, hidden across libraries, museums, and waffle houses. You call it the archive of human nonsense. You graffiti wisdom on the walls, don't trust squirrels with leadership roles, love like no one's watching because they aren't. And if you're reading this, congrats, you're literate. You organize everything you scavenged, not just for survival, but as a weird little museum of your time here. A display case of mismatched socks, a gallery of oddly shaped potatoes. A solemn exhibit titled Things I Regret Eating, an autobiography in 5 jars. You invent a flag. It's a bedsheet painted with a raccoon holding a kazoo above the word "Still Here." You raise it on the roof of an old post office using a broomstick and a prayer. It flaps nobly in the wind like a surrender to absurdity. You try to document yourself, leaving behind not just objects but personality. You record voice memos that range from how to start a fire using only sarcasm to my thoughts on love, betrayal, and canned meat. You film vlogs for no one, walking the ruined streets like a one-person travel influencer. Hey guys, welcome back to my post-apocalyptic day in the life. This morning I cried into a can of peas and then fought gravity. 10 out of 10. You leave notes in strange places. Inside books, under rocks, in the mouths of mannequin heads you've repurposed as mailboxes. Each one says something ridiculous like, yes, aliens probably have better snacks, or you were braver than a raccoon in rush hour. You hope one day someone finds them and laughs, or at least wonders what kind of majestic lunatic once wandered this place. And somewhere deep down you realize that legacy isn't about grand architecture or important discoveries. It's about the absurdities that make us human. The silly stuff, the loud laughs, the bad poetry, the ridiculous hope that someone someday will know you were here and think, damn, this person really committed to the bit. Then one day, after a perfectly average breakfast of cereal and existential dread, you find something. A footprint. Not yours. Not animal. Human. Fresh. You freeze. You stare. You say out loud, oh no, I'm going to have to start wearing pants again. And everything shifts. The statues, the journals, the Kazoo flag, they all become not relics but invitations. Your legacy isn't an end. It's a beginning. It's breadcrumbs in a forest of ruins. And maybe, just maybe, it'll lead someone to find not just what you built, but who you were. Someone stubborn, funny, weird, occasionally pantsless, but deeply absurdly human. You stand in the middle of what used to be Times Square, though now it's mostly moths, pigeons, and the ghost of capitalism whispering softly from faded billboards. Your raccoon friend Roger has vanished into some philosophical trash journey. Your mannequin band has fallen apart over creative differences, and even the pigeons don't return your text anymore. But today is different. Today, you have hope. Because yesterday you saw smoke on the horizon. Not your smoke. Not the oops, I burned my toast on an engine block again smoke. No, this was real human smoke. Fire with intense smoke. And now your entire brain has gone full Disney montage mode, replaying every human interaction you've ever had, even the time Chad from accounting sneezed on your sandwich. You find yourself brushing your hair, putting on pants, real ones, not just a ceremonial bathrobe of isolation. You scrub your teeth with actual toothpaste instead of the minty freshness side of a chewing gum wrapper. You practice small talk. Hi. Are you human? Me too. Unless you're a lizard wearing skin, in which case, cool. I'm very open-minded. You plan the reintroduction to society, which at this point may consist of a single other person and possibly their emotionally distant dog. You make a welcome basket with canned peaches, a kazoo, and a card that says, so glad you exist. You even practice smiling in a mirror that no longer judges you for the beard you gave up trimming after month 4. As you set off in the direction of the smoke, dragging your wagon of emotional baggage and possibly expired granola bars, you realize you're scared. Not of zombies or mutant badgers or getting stuck in another conversation with a fence post, but of being known again, of letting someone in. Because being alone, for all its weird perks, like total playlist control and never having to explain why you're crying over an expired Twinkie, has also been safe. Loneliness, after all, is predictable. People are chaos wrapped in empathy-flavored burritos. But then you remember the first rule you wrote in your Guide to Post-Apocalyptic Sanity Volume 3 Hope Edition. You wrote it on a napkin in crayon while drinking expired soda in your underpants. It said, if someone else survived, they deserve a terrible pun and a hug, in that order. And suddenly, connection doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like purpose. Because at the end of the world, the real treasure wasn't the survival skills you never really mastered, or the thousands of self-portraits you painted using condiments. It was a reminder that none of this, none of the stories, the jokes, the tears over moldy toast, mattered much if there was no one to share them with. Connection is what makes survival something more than just not dying. A bad pun, a form of diplomacy, and a simple wave across a ruined street feel like the start of everything. And then, just as you crest the hill, dragging your wagon, heart pounding like a squirrel in a washing machine, you see them. Another human. Standing. Breathing. Wearing shoes. And somehow you don't panic. You don't burst into tears. You walk up and say, hey, you ever fight a goose over granola? And they laugh. And just like that, the silence breaks. The void answers. The end of the world gets its first encore. So what if you were the last person on Earth? You weren't. Not really. You were the first person of something new. A new tribe. A new chapter. A new weird era where raccoons wear hats and shampoo bottles play Shakespeare and someone still remembers the lyrics to that one song about a horse in the back. And now, you're not just a survivor, you're a storyteller. So go on, rebuild, laugh, love, start a kazoo orchestra, write weird poetry in the dust. And if someone ever asks what it was like, tell them the truth. It was lonely, it was hilarious, it was beautiful, and it was yours. Thanks for listening to What If Horizons, where the end of the world is just the start of a better story. If you love this journey through the ultimate solo campaign, don't forget to scream into the algorithm void by liking, subscribing, and sending this episode to someone who'd appreciate post-apocalyptic kazoo solos. Or maybe just someone who gets the joke. Until next time, stay weird, stay curious, and stay suspicious of squirrels.